The terrorists are reinforced by many foreign fighters who come from elsewhere, who are not, in fact. If I take the case of Burkina Faso, there are many criminals in Burkina Faso, but they are not Burkinabe. There are also trainers who come from many countries to teach them a lot of techniques.
But what is their interest?
It's not really terrorism, it's imperialism.
You are watching Joseph TV show.
Or relationship. You see, whenever you look at everything we do, every initiative we take, it's always about Russia. Someone speaks and they say they're influenced by Russia. Everything that happens, it's Russia. Why do they have their eyes closed like that? So Africans aren't capable of developing anything. Africans aren't capable of inventing, innovating, or taking initiatives. That's what we're fighting against. And look at their speeches. Look at their speeches. Even the French president, always in his speeches, says that young Africans are influenced by Russia. It's said, and if you listen to Western media, they spend all their time lying. And look today, the AES, which is a model that's starting to take shape, they can't go a single day without talking about Burkina or the AES. It's impossible for them. And every time they try to spread information, to divide, to manipulate the youth. But it doesn't work anymore. I think people are aware enough. Now people have their eyes open. Through communication, they managed to rewrite history. And as for African history, they schemed everything to spread lies. As a result, some young Africans don't even know the history of Africa or what Africa has accomplished. Some don't even know that our grandparents fought, were put on the front lines as cannon fodder, and when they returned, they were killed like animals. Do people know that when France tested its first atomic bomb, it was black soldiers they placed nearby in the blast radius to see what would happen? Let's bring out the archives. Everything they've used against Africa is terrible. So all of this needs to be communicated so that young Africans understand, because there are still many who are asleep and continue to speak on behalf of the imperialists. Whatever they're told to say, they do it. Maybe it's because, well, they're given something, I don't know. But Africans need to understand their history and wake up. So that's our fight as well. My biggest regret is having spent a good part of my youth listening to radio stations like RFI and France 24. I've been in countries where those radio stations were shut down. But we would use apps to record their news broadcasts so we could listen. But at some point, something clicked. I started to realize that they were conditioning our minds to accept what they wanted. It's their narrative that they want us to learn. And since then, I've started to see things for what they are. And I understood that what they're doing is very dangerous. And today, more than ever, I realize that they have conditioned the minds, especially of Africans. So, you can play a big role in awakening the consciousness of young people so that people understand how the world works. And don't let themselves be led astray by those people. When we watch the parade of the machines that won the war, that is the T-34s up to the modern vehicles, it shows us the technological evolution of the Russian army. And it inspires us as well to get to work so that we can develop in the same direction. Relations are going very well. And I can say that for the past 2 years now, things have started off very well, and we are working on deepening the areas of defense and security, but also education and, later on, the commercial sector and other aspects. So, we have staggered the different areas so that we can exchange a lot and share many experiences, because we also have a lot to learn from Russia in the field of education, especially in the sciences. Now, it must be said that up to today, gold is the main export product in Burkina Faso. But we have set agriculture in motion, first for self-sufficiency, but also for foreign trade and export. The terrorists are reinforced by many foreign fighters who come from elsewhere, who are not, in fact. If I take the case of Burkina Faso, there are many criminals in Burkina Faso, but they are not Burkinabe. There are also trainers who come from many countries to teach them a lot of techniques.
But what is their interest?
It's not really terrorism, it's imperialism. Their goal is to keep us in a state of permanent war, so that we cannot develop and so they can continue to plunder our resources. So, they have every interest in bringing in specialists in mines to lay various types of mines and explosives experts. Today, the terrorists use drones to fight and everything. So, these are professionals from certain countries who come to teach them all of this. All of this is to keep us in a state of insecurity. But we are aware of the situation. We adapt each time to their methods of operation, and we will continue the fight until we have recovered the entirety of the Sahel. So, all the countries that are fighting today for their more economic relationship.
Our cooperation with Russia will be based more on education and the transfer of knowledge. It will not be a cooperation where we are there asking for help, asking for financial or economic support, and so on. That is not why we are here. We are here to cooperate more in the field of knowledge. And knowledge is much more scientific. And you, here in the scientific university, I admire you greatly, because normally you are supposed to learn and practice science, chemistry, and radio technology. This is what we need today in order to develop. I will give you a few examples during my speech to illustrate the core of my thinking. Here, we are at Mendeleev University. Everyone who has taken science courses has studied Mendeleev. And I'm going to share a little anecdote with you. During my school years, there were people who didn't like certain subjects and couldn't manage to learn certain things. So when they couldn't do it, we would nickname them after the scientist who invented that thing. For example, we had people we called Pavlov, and we also had people we called Mendeleev as well. The one we called Mendeleev, for instance, once wondered why Mendeleev created that table. It's to create problems for us. You see, he has to study a table, but he doesn't know why he has to study it. Which means that if he doesn't practice, he doesn't know the usefulness of the periodic table firsthand. That's why I say, in this regard, cooperation is very important so that we can actually practice. It's the same thing with chemical equations that we spend so much time balancing, since, I would say, high school. We're really good when, on paper, we're told to balance a chemical equation, we do it. When in thermodynamics, we're asked to calculate the standard enthalpy of formation of a substance, we do it. But practically speaking, what do we actually do? For example, has anyone ever shown me, say, an illustration of a nucleus like that of hydrogen and explained what happens if you remove an electron, or what happens if you add an electron? I never got that kind of practical illustration. Since high school, we've been doing chemical reactions with hydrochloric acid on paper. But I've never actually handled hydrochloric acid or performed a real experiment with it. This just goes to show you how important practical experience is, and in our countries we lack the laboratories that would allow us to get that hands-on practice. And you shouldn't become the kind of theorist that I am. That's why we want to replicate this kind of university back home, so that our young people studying scientific subjects can get practical experience and not just be theorists. so many things around us are about the chemistry of materials. The world itself even started with that. This table that Mendeleev created, I believe that all of science is based on it. But it's practical experience that allows you to move beyond being just a theorist and to create something tangible that can be useful to society. And that contributes a lot to the economy of our countries. Without you even realizing it, let me give you a few examples. You see, we import a lot of iron, for example, from all over the world, what we call galvanized iron. And you know very well, you chemists here, that it's nothing more than an electrolysis reaction. Why can't we produce the iron ourselves locally? We have to go buy galvanized iron from China or get about Europe from all over the world. For example, we are at war. We pay for equipment, now we pay for ammunition, weapons and everything else. When I talk to you about munitions, explosives and all that, Mali produces cotton, Burkina produces it, Niger produces it. But you know very well that it's the cellulose from cotton that's processed to make gunpowder and explosives. Why can't we manage to do it ourselves? Because we don't have practical chemistry. Even for the armor plating of vehicles. Yesterday I saw many vehicles parading on Red Square, from T-34s to modern vehicles. Armor plating has evolved. What is armor plating? It's a type of steel, and it's through chemistry that people understood that by adding a certain amount of carbon and so on, you can create a special kind of steel. It's a matter of practice. We know how to do the chemical equations. We know very well that if we add a certain amount of carbon, it gives us steel and so on. But in practice, are we able to actually create the armor plating? And yet, we are at war. And it's chemistry that allows us to do this as well. In the same vein, here, you can see all the types of missiles that the Russian Federation is able to develop. And the latest one is the Oreshnik Unity, which is making the whole world tremble. You know, who wouldn't want to have it? But even just the fuel for all these missiles, that's chemistry. Are we actually able to figure out, in practice, how to create this fuel and try to build an engine to propel a rocket or a missile? There are so many examples that we couldn't possibly finish listing them all, but it's just to tell you that you are lucky to be here, I would say at the very birthplace of chemistry and mathematics, because in Russia there have been scholars in these fields, whether it's physics, chemistry or mathematics. But as the representative said, history has been distorted, and we've been led to believe that Russians are not strong in certain fields. It's others, the ones who write history, who claim to be strong in everything. But I think today, history shows us that all of that is false. There truly are great scholars. The origin is right here. The proof is Mendeleev, who created the table that summarizes matter, is Russian. So take advantage and learn, but learn in a practical way so that it benefits our countries.